UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. With under 6 months to the general elections in 2026, there is a proposal to have an electronic voting system in this country. The minister in charge of Justice and Constitutional Affairs seems like he wants to table a proposal before cabinet. If the president's statements are anything to go by, when he said it will be mandatory to have biometrics or an electronic voting system come 2026, and if a polling station fails at that, it should be annulled. If we look at the successes in 2005 in Estonia, but also look at 2016 in America, where allegations of Russia meddling in their elections, that brings questions. But we come closer home to Kenya in 2012 and 2019, where elections have allegations of a server that is giving them challenges. Are we ready as a country to have electronics run our voting in this country? Because it has two elements to it, being anonymous, but also trusting the system. If biometrics have failed in the past few elections, what makes this a success? And will this answer the pains of Ugandans? That's where our discussion is tonight. Let me turn to the panel. Next to me is Honorable Proskovia Salam Musumba, who is the Speaker of the People's Front for Freedom. Good evening, Honorable, and it's good to have you.
Well, thank you very much. What a pleasure to be here.
What an intriguing week you have had.
I've loved whatever I see, and I thank God for it. I hope the country is glad to see some common ground.
Congratulations on the Delegates Conference.
Thank you very much.
Heading in a proper trajectory.
Thank you very much. You have a serious team, you have a good team, you have a winning team. And so there's everything good to write home about.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Next to Honorable Salam is Honorable Jimmy James Akena, the President of the Uganda People's Congress, but also representing the people of Lira Municipality, is with us this evening. Honorable, good evening, and it's good to have you.
Thank you very much. I represent Lira City East. We were upgraded to a city status in the last election.
Yes.
So the municipality became two constituencies, East and West, and I represent East in this parliament.
Both as incumbent and aspirant?
No, aspirant, I'm going higher than constituency this time.
This time you're going for the presidency?
Yes.
I'm sitting next to a presidential candidate.
Thank you very much. Next to Honorable Jimmy Akena is Captain Honorable Edward Francis Babu, a veteran citizen at that. Good evening, sir. It's good to have you.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I'm worried about tomorrow.
Why?
The weather is going to become cold.
Cold?
Yes. Something called a Flinian phenomenon is going to happen tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. And the temperature here in this country is going to change. Starting tomorrow at 5 p.m., for 27 hours, we're going to experience very cold weather. The Earth will be very far away from the sun. It will move from about 90 million kilometers to about 152 million kilometers. That means we're going to be far, and therefore it's going to be very cold. We cannot see the phenomenon, but we shall feel it. And until the beginning of August.
Wow.
Wow.
Is it going to be wintry?
We will have cold weather, and we must boost our immunity. We shall be very careful because it will bring about flu, colds, and some people will have problem with breathing.
Pneumonia, for sure.
And we must boost our immunity using plenty of vitamins and good food. The distance from the Earth, as I told you, will change. During this time, a lot of people will have to be told, especially small children going to school very early in the morning. Now, this is a very interesting thing, and people should know about it. Some people are already sending it on the different platforms. I suggest that we do it now and tell everybody to be very careful starting tomorrow. And by the way, even now, if you look at it, it's a bit chilly as you move along. So tomorrow morning it will be worse than what it is now. So it's nice that people get to know about this. And of course, We can't just sit here and pretend nothing is happening next door. Our people next door are having problems with their young people who are telling them enough is enough. And we can't just keep quiet when there's a lot of people with bad manners running around this country, calling themselves politicians, which they are not. They're just bad people, bad behavior. A good politician is supposed to have integrity and good manners. And this thing of getting guns out and threatening people, and enough is enough. And by the way, for me, I am tired of intimidation. I'm just tired. I don't care who is doing it. Be it people in power, be it people outside power. This country is a country of good people. By the way, the majority of our people are very good. These little few fellows who are running around like they have just seen Western movies with little guns running around and pretending to be tough, we are tired.
Okay. Thank you. Lastly but not least, Ambassador James Chinove, Deputy Chairman of the Electoral Commissioner.
Yeah.
Commissioner at the Electoral Commission of the National Resistance Movement. Good evening, sir. It's good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I've got worried also from the news I've just got from Captain, but forewarned is better. I think we need really to amplify the message. I entirely agree with him. It's a pleasure to share a panel with my president-to-be and my other sister, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. To give you context, first and foremost, we condemn what happened in Isinjiro and also what happened in Kasambia, the burning of cars, but also the violence that is happening in the primaries of the NRM. We'll bring you that in another show. But also our condolences to the family that had come into the country to retire and they were murdered, both husband and wife. Very sad news happening there. But let's give you context of our discussion here. You can follow us on YouTube. Please go to our X platform there. We're streaming live on the space there. The number to text us or WhatsApp us is 0709 60 25 92. Let us know what you think. The discussion is about the proposal that is supposed to be before Cabinet discussing an electronic voting system that should be initiated. And there are two areas there. Either it's by biometric, but also a fully automated system. In Nigeria in 2019, there was a constituency that had 1,500 candidates. And they had ballot papers that were as big as maybe a poster that you can put anywhere. So that's how it comes about there. Honorable Proskovia Salamusuba, let me come to you first and foremost. When you hear this whole debacle of an electronic voting system, but also hear what the president says, and he says it will be mandatory during the Arunda lecture that he was giving. And he said it will be mandatory. And secondly, he said if a constituency has a faulty one, it should be annulled. Your thoughts on this?
Sounds to me like good news. If it is effected in its full capability. But I'm sorry, they are not capable of that.
Why do you say so?
Because we can look at the way they have mismanaged the national ID, the parameters they have opted to use, limited in form, to provide an opportunity for ongoing renewal and updating of the specs as a calculated effort to keep them exploiting Ugandans under big words, electronic, biometric. You know, they sound big, and within the IT spectrum, you would think that they know what they are doing. No, they would need to describe to me what they understand, because by the way, we understand different things by these concepts. Theirs is always the limited version. I have participated in all the elections and by-elections, and so I'm familiar with all the failures and all the plots they do. I have been in contact with the polling those guys are manning the polling stations, and how they cause failure in order to steal for him votes. So he's crying foul because even us have learned those ways, and we can outdo him. So if you want a tamper-proof, bulletproof, foolproof biometric system, electronic system, which is possible, we must go all the way of the voting to have it. One, we must demand that we all elect, the mark should be only a thumb print, not a tick. If it's comprehensive in a way that you get biometric identification, and then you move forward to make it to have the full integrity of the system, and then you have a thumbprint, then you can even audit the people who have voted. You see? But they don't need it. They are not saying it that way. They're just doing the biometric for identification, not to the end point use of the possibility of that entire system. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what they're providing. But as I've said, judging from the national ID, and I was in Parliament when it was proposed. You remember that German fellow who came stealing our money? What was that guy called? Bull whatever? Mulbag, you know? What they give us is the moribund generation of IT. They don't give us the sophisticated one, like the one they use for India. You know, India, with their 1 billion voters, they have no petitions. It's a foolproof voting system, which is real time. Real time. By the time you finish voting, everybody can see the tally as it goes down. These ones are just giving us patchwork. They are not capable of providing anything sophisticated and real time and modern. They're not. They're going to go into some warehouse and find rotten things and bring us here and say that they've provided biometric, and anybody who sees a tab will think that that is it. The software is just not there. So yes, I would love to go that way, all the way, not halfway, not part way. And we need, as stakeholders in the entire process, to have a dry run on that technology. That's the best way we will be happy with a tamper-proof, foolproof, bulletproof election.
Before I come to Honorable Jimmy and Captain Francis, let me come to Ambassador Chinove. This proposal, I had it over the weekend. The Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs said the financing is available. He said there would be biometric, there would be the reading of iris. What are the details within this proposal for us to begin to scrutinize it? And isn't it a little bit too late, 6 months to elections?
First of all, if you allow me to speculate, let me speculate widely, like the way my sister has put it, because your question is, are we ready? Ready for what? You're telling us that the proposed law is coming before cabinet? As an active person in my party, I have a roadmap. Elections are on the 17th in the internal elections. 17th September is nomination of candidates. October is the president, and I think around November the campaigns start. If the bill is still at cabinet level, and it has not even come out to another committee level, I don't know whether practically we're going to have that. I don't know what has been going on, because you know, I'm not in the parliament, I'm not in the government structure, and this matter has just come into the public debate for us also to have an input. So whatever I give in is just speculative or picking from the experience where these systems have actually worked, like you've given examples. But the bottom line is, as a Ugandan who doesn't want to carry cards, go and register, do ABCD and so on, I would be glad if the system can actually work, because it becomes very convenient. The issue of having been registered, run around, get this card, go and update your names and so on, all those things would be, I think, part of history. Because once NIRA takes my biometrics, you just walk into the booth and maybe they take my iris and see I'm a registered voter. But are we there yet? The challenges we still have with internet. When you look at the polling stations we have in this country, I think we have about 38,000 polling stations at the villages, spread out in about 10,000 parishes. I don't know whether we have internet coverage to about half of that to handle an election of the magnitude we're talking about. So maybe when we wait for the learn what they're talking about, possibly we shall have informed decisions. But to answer your question, I don't think we are ready for it. Because when you look at what is supposed to be put in place, procurement processes, training of the people to handle the digital gadgets that you are supposed to be put in place, the framework remaining up to the elections which are coming in less than the 6 months you're talking about. Honestly, I don't think this election we are ready. Lastly, the dry run my sister is talking about is important. If they had prepared themselves earlier on, we would have had a test run of that, these machines in the recent KWMP by-elections, and we see how it works. But if you're going to try it the first time in a general election, which is supposed to be a one-day's event covering the entire country, the bulk of data that's being uploaded, I think we're just ambitious. We're excited about it, but practically, I think we are still a bit far away from the actual achieving it in this coming elections. However, I would advise government that since we are going to, naturally, definitely after every election, you are going to have petitions and by-elections, the dry run can be thought of during the petitions that will emerge after the general elections, but I don't think the country is technically and psychologically prepared for that exercise, especially in a system where we have not built enough trust. Me, I'm a player as a party, but also my colleagues are also players in their parties. When we still have belief that even the Electoral Commission, which is manual and physical handles our things, is not trusted, I don't think that we can convince our counterparts to believe that these gadgets are going to deliver a justifiable and a more explainable outcome of this election. So, to answer your question, I don't think I'm ready.
Ambassador Chinobe, we invited the Electoral Commission to be able to come for this show. They declined on saying, yes, they know about the proposal, but they would like to respond after it has gone through. If we look at two incidents, one, your chairperson of your party has said it should be mandatory. That was one. Two, he went ahead and said, if at a polling station it becomes faulty, that election should be annulled. We have seen the president say something and it becomes law. So how are you saying that you have no idea as a player on how this will work, yet it seems like your chairman just said it?
Yeah, your chairman has the right to have a wish list, but his Attorney General himself is saying the enabling law is going to be made. So let's look at the framework of making an enabling law and how to train the people and so on. But it's a desirable, even ourselves, we have submitted, I say it's desirable, I want it, but can I have everything I want in the time I'm talking about? The answer is we are not able to have that exercise carried through electronic voting if we are talking about the forthcoming general elections.
If we're looking at the shortcomings of UBOS, just the recent census, do we have the infrastructure? Do we have?
Don't even go to UBOS. Themselves, when the Electoral Commission has been updating our registers, the gadgets that were sent up country, even just to update voters, given a range of about 10-15 days, were they doing a very good job? They were already having challenges. I think that's why maybe the Electoral Commission has declined to come in, because maybe they need more details. And actually, my coming in was to pose the same questions to them, because definitely they are the ones who govern the electoral processes in this country. And the proposed exercise is going to be under their docket. I just wanted to know how ready themselves are they to have this. But now, by the EC declining to come in is an indication that I think there are some other details which you also still need to understand. Otherwise, it's good for the chairman of the party, it's good for all Ugandans, it's good for everybody who would want transparency and efficiency in the electoral process. However, our desire plus how we get the desire is another question.
Captain Francis Babu, I looked at some of the countries that have employed this. You and I on phone talked about the US, but also Estonia was successful in 2005. It takes about 2 minutes and 15 seconds for someone to go through this process if we're using an electronic voting system. I did the calculation by 46 million Ugandans. It would take us approximately 2 to 3 days for everyone to use this machine. As a country, is this a viable option or is it a wish list like Ambassador Chinobe is saying?
You know, I'm very happy that all of you are not sure. You are all giving your sincere opinion, which is not bad. This system started in the United States in 1982 in one of the states. It went around, ended up in Europe, Germany, Netherlands, and some countries there started using it. As we talk right now, those countries have now gone back to the manual. They have refused the electronic. Why? Because we are doing things that, first of all, we don't understand. And then we have a lot of doubts. Let me help my brother Kinobe here. I was in cabinet. You can pass something today and tomorrow the law is out and signed. So that one is not a problem. So on that one, I'm not worried about. What I'm worried about is this psychological problem of people understanding the system. I don't.
We're hoping they want to understand.
No.
They want us to understand.
We have the problem with the elite in this country and in Africa. The elite live in a different world compared to the majority of the people. So these elite who have gone and done a little bit of computer, they are now telling us how things should work. So they go and bring us some Germans who come here and tell us all sorts of things. They bring us some foreigners. The question is, are we, the majority of our people, do we understand what we're talking about? And by the way, I'd like to thank Honorable Kinobe because he has come out very clearly. A lot of people are like Honorable Kinobe now, and he's speaking at least at a better level. There are others who are just below, who say, what is this? What are we talking about? I don't have to go that far. They say, the people, the Germans and the people in Netherlands who are having problems with this, they are saying that people have not yet understood this program. Honorable Musumba has talked about India. India has got 3 systems in one. They've got a first system, a second one, and a third one. And these are checking, one is checking the other. I'm just giving you that as an example. And therefore, one has to be very careful when you're talking about this. Psychologically, are we ready for this system? And with the kind of people we have, by the way, why don't you ask Americans about Trump and the Russians? Maybe that one can also help us to understand what happens with the system. So from there, why don't you talk to the Kenyans about the last elections? Again, that gives you another example where you're going from. Now, what we're talking about, with a lot of people who are not honest, who are dishonest, and with a lot of young people who are very good hackers now, they hack systems. Where are we going? So, the next thing we're going to say, okay, it's not a bad system if it could work. Maybe if we go to that Indian example, which I've just talked about. By the way, it's got 3 different levels, the Indian thing. And one checks the other one. Now, the important thing here is, are we ready? Are we being prepared? And this is where he was talking about the run, to practice, to see if it works or not. And the organization which is supposed to handle it, are they ready? Do we have enough time? That's another point that came up. So, at the end of the day, wireless is a very, very good system. It has come late. Number 2, we have not compared. I would like to compare systems. I hate when people come here because they are speaking a language we don't understand, and we think what they are telling us is gospel truth. And then some of our contractors, our government, contract committees, each one has got one bringing their own example. Look at these numbers they brought the other day. It's a shaming us. Numbers for cars. It's a big war. You know, the people. What I realize, everybody who sits on the contract committee is got a contractor. Each one is presenting something. Now, what my problem is this. Because of because of all these problems which we already have, are we ready really to operate this nice system? It is nice. There's nothing wrong with it if it could work. My worry is that it is not going to work. It's going to cause us more problems. So, I would like to propose, and very strongly, let them go through with it. It might not be ready for these elections. It might be ready for the following elections. But these elections, a little bit too near. Of course, somebody will tell me, but you see, Captain, the problem with you, your speed is not 1 TB. You know, these young men nowadays, they're talking speeds. TB, 2 TBs.
Mbps.
Mbps.
We're still in Mbps.
But the whole point is very, very simple. Let us go through with it. I have no problem presenting it to the cabinet. Let them get it out. Let the cabinet also look at it. Is it possible? Because these are very highly interested people. Let's see, if they can't work this time, can they bring it in the following elections? Meanwhile, are there bits and pieces that can help us during this time? If they aren't, then we wait until the next. But last time we had something which they used.
The biometric.
Yeah, I don't know if it worked well or not. Nobody has given us a full report. But with this kind of people behaving, with the gun toting, you know, we've got people here who think that they are cowboys. I think they think they're in the Western, you know, in those days I used to watch Western movies.
The Wild West.
It's like Wild West. Running around, threatening people. Let me take this opportunity, sir, if you're in the Electoral Commission. Please punish these people. Please. How can somebody go there, draw a gun and shoot somebody, and Electoral Commission is still keeping quiet? If it is Electoral Commission of the party, sack them. If it is Electoral Commission, sack them. What is all this?
Captain, before I get to Honorable Jimmy, the penetration, according to the digital report of 2024, shows that it's about 27% of Ugandans. That's about 13 million there. About 15% is between 18 and about 35. And the rest of the 12 is above that. When you look at this, when you look at UBOS, when you look at the biometrics that failed us in the past elections, we'll come to Kenya in a short while there, and you look at remote areas, speaking of my village deep in Sofia in Busia, where in one corner I'm getting Safaricom, in another corner I'm getting MTN.
And in the other corner you have Lira East. No, the whole...
No, but you have a challenge that when you go near the border, the internet we pick is actually Kenyan internet. So it means our gadgets are actually going to use the Kenya internet instead of using our network in the country.
No, the whole point is...
No, you have a spectrum.
Let me tell you what the whole point is. Let me put it in one word. We have very bad behavior and we are bad-mannered. Full stop.
We have bad hearts.
And if we don't get out of that thing, we will never get the elections of these countries moving in the right direction. These things you are here, those are not politicians. A politician is supposed to be a person with integrity, is supposed to have behave themselves, and they're supposed to be honest. These people you are seeing, they are not politicians. They are gangsters.
Thugs.
Let me come to Honorable Jimmy. Honorable, you are in the race already and vying for the presidency of this country. You have been in the dungeons, both in by-elections of all natures. When you hear such a proposal, what comes to you?
The first question is, what are we trying to cure? Right? You must be clear on what it is you're curing, and then you prescribe the right medicine for what you're trying to cure. At this stage, it's not clear what you're trying to cure. We've heard from the chairman of NRM that according to him, there were 1 million votes which were smuggled in.
Actually, at the Aronda lecture, he said it increased to 2.7.
Okay. Initially, he said 1 million were added in, but we have no explanation of how they were added. If there was an issue where 1 million votes were added, we need to put the Electoral Commission, which is still organizing this same election under the same chair. If they were not capable of protecting the integrity of the vote, where 1 million at that time for last election, 1 million is approximately 10% of the vote. If it increases to 2.7, that is almost 30% of the vote. If 30% of the vote is fraudulent, then we have a much bigger crisis than where it is. Then the next issue will come is the digital penetration. How are you bringing this electronic system in a country where kids are sitting on the floor, don't have desks? Who's supposed to be using this issue? You look at the digital penetration. How many times are you at an ATM and you see people struggling to use the ATM? How far does the ATM go? If I talk about Lango, you find it in Lira and you find it in Apache. You rarely find it in other places. You're getting a few now coming up in these smaller places. But how far is that digital penetration? Who is going to be using this system? So when you have that background to it, and then the person proposing, I'm sorry to say this to Ambassador here, but there is a total deficit of trust that the NRM can organize a free and fair election. Nobody believes it. We don't. We go into an election, and you're there on the defensive from the beginning, making sure you're protecting how they're not going to steal, and you do find them stealing. Every election, every by-election, we find them stealing. It blows up. Now you just try to minimize. So if you don't have the trust, the country, we don't have trust that NRM can deliver free and fair election. This proposal now raises more questions, because even in this issue, the update of the register and the like, I kept on asking, and I still ask, what is the role of ISO in this update? Nobody has given us a full explanation, but they said, no, people without NIN, and what? Now, if people without NIN are also voting, and ISO the one organizing it, and yet in some of these other documents, ISO protects the revolution. Not the country, the revolution. So what is it? This is now, you are asking for a system to actually rig. And as Honorable Salam said earlier, the system needs to be tested. In most places, you run it as a parallel system. Like if it's this election, you want to introduce it, in this election to be run as a parallel system where you have your paper and electronic. If the practitioners of the politics find that the two tally, that's where you have the confidence to go forth. But at this stage, there is no clarity. What is going on at this moment within the NRM internal process? It's not something which gives you encouragement that this is the organization which can actually deliver an election with people who can act with integrity. Honestly, what is taking place does not augur well for as far as democracy is concerned. And what are we trying to cure? So in all of this one, it does not give us any confidence. But on this issue of the time, we had recently, we find it on order paper on a Tuesday, Political Parties and Organizations Amendments Act, Amendments Bill. The following day, there's a certificate of financial implications. Next day, it is with the committee. Report is ready before even stakeholders like ourselves who've been part and parcel of this thing were even invited, and it is passed on the next city. So yes, even this thing, they're possible doing that one, but it's not going to give us a credible election. And when we go back to the history where NRM claims that they went to the bush because of an election, and then you bring such level of, how to call it, fraud, honestly, are we not going around in circles?
Honorable Jimmy, and you mentioned the Organizations Act, and I saw you on the floor of Parliament really speaking very vehemently about it. But what do you anticipate they're trying to cure? What is trying, from your reading of what the president said, what are we trying to cure? Or what is government trying to cure?
I don't know what it is they're trying to cure. There are many areas which we have raised over a period of time which we need to cure for elections.
Even what court has proposed.
Access, court has proposed. There are issues which are very clear, which Supreme Court put that should be done in time. But now we're behind time. Like any amendment should have been done at least 1 year before. But we've gone beyond that period. So there's always this issue of delay, but the purpose behind it is not for the benefit of the people. Clearly, it's not for the benefit of the people. Because in the whole process of the politics, there's different standards to different players, different access to different players, different criteria. Now, in this context, I don't see where the solution is. The only thing I can see is that there's a concern that the numbers, which maybe they anticipated, are not adding up, and therefore there's a desperate attempt to find ways on how to cushion those numbers. And this is despite all whatever preparation and all pre-rigging which takes place. These numbers are still not adding up. That is why I see the urgency to bring this at this moment.
And you mentioned, before I come back to Honorable Salam, you mentioned that he talked about the 1,000 that was smuggled in.
1 million.
1 million that was smuggled in, voter rigging, ballot stuffing. Do you see this as the solution to those challenges?
No, that now touches on the very fundamental. He claims the whole reason of existence of NRA, which predated, if I would say, NRM, the fight was, at least the argument on public.
On the surface.
On the surface was elections were rigged. Where I disagree with elections rigged is the area where the war was fought, DP1, all the seats there. So it did not make sense. Maybe they were fighting because DP1. Then the combatants. And this is a very important point. The combatants, the foot soldier. I'll give you, in World War II, the average age of the foot soldier was 26 years. In Vietnam, when America was fighting in Vietnam, the average age of the combat soldier was 19 years. When the NRA came out to the bush, we saw kids, tiny, who were not voters in 1980, were not even going to be voters in 1990. They were kids, they were not voters. These are the ones who are supposed to be fighting for democracy. They were also foreigners as part of the NRA who were not voters, who had no right to vote, who were fighting for democracy in Uganda. It does not make sense. Then after immediately getting in, 10 years, all parties are in abeyance. That is, and even up to today, we have a democratic deficit. So, what is the reason? I don't know the reason. The only reason I can really see is to not to assist in developing the democracy, but to subvert the democracy, to maintain themselves in power at whatever cost. That is what I see in.
Captain, you have something to say?
No, I disagree with that. I disagree with that argument. The electronic system can work. The problem is where. Now, what is the nuisance in our elections today? What is the nuisance? There's been a lot of complaints about cheating. There's complaints from the village to the tallying center, from the tallying center where they announce the elections. The time taken is also a nuisance. Now, technically, if there was very good computers, like Salam said of India, for example, that would automatically register and people would see it. They would not have to wait for somebody to announce. Now, so technically there is a nuisance and there's a requirement of a computer. I just wanted also to tell my brother here, I was part of the revolution of this country. It was not only elections. Elections was one of the reasons. The main problem of this revolution was from 1962 to 1985. There were all sorts of things that happened that brought about this revolution. So for people to sit down, and I've been hearing this quite a bit, and I'm a bit surprised. It's not only elections. There were other things happened. For example, like destroying the Rubiri of the Kabaka and our Kabaka, we who are from Uganda. There were other people who died because of the lost counties. There are people who died in 1969. There are all sorts of things. I don't want to go through all that. It's just a conversation for another day. But for goodness sake, let's not bring those in on this computer. The computer in itself, if it was done correctly, it can improve the methods of our elections. My only worry, one, is it has come a little bit late. And therefore, as somebody from the Electoral Commission showed us, we might not have enough time to prepare. Now, that is a good point. Now, we must also look at the countries where they're having problems, like Germany, like Netherlands, like the United States itself. like the country next door. How do we overcome all those problems they have had? Now, these things of votes here and votes there, people cheating and whatnot, I think, can this computer help us to overcome those, for example, those arguments? Like I told you earlier on, people are not confident that the organization that is supposed to run the electronic system is got the ability to do so. We are not psychologically brought to speak.
All is fair enough.
Yeah, it's not fair.
The party, even which does not favor them.
That's right. And then, like I told you earlier on, I'm not going to go on these propagandas and whatnot. I want us to look at the system like you brought it to us. Can this system work? If we are prepared, psychologically, all of us, including the voters.
But not for this election.
No, these particular elections, I think, personally, I think let the people come out of cabinet and they become sincere to us. Do we have enough time to get that system working? And secondly, how many systems have they compared? Because the one which worked our next door, for our next door.
We're going to come to that, Captain. We're going to come to that because it's also a study that we need to look at.
For example, if you bring a system, we would like to know how many systems are there. And we would like to be educated. By the way, I told you, you elite in this country are causing us problems. They talk above our heads. Bring it down to us so that we can understand. Going to the cabinet and talking Oxford English is not good enough for us. We want to understand. What is this thing all about? Now, the nuisance is there because we're having problem with our elections anyway. But then, apart from the elections, we have bad manners. I don't know if there's a computer to help us with that one.
It's not there.
And
Honorable Jimmy, you have something to say?
I have something here because I cannot, despite respecting my elders, I cannot sit here and listen to somebody who is deceiving themselves properly in public on the TV here. Because where I fault many in the NRM who like saying that, or many who left the NRM who say that Museveni deviated. They had a clear issue, then Museveni deviated. The document which defines NRM, which nobody has ever denied, number one objective, removal of UPC aborted dictatorship by force of arms. And that issue of dictatorship, I'll argue about it at a different time. Then it's by establishment by force, if necessary, of a one-party popular democracy under the NRM, which we've been existing with. Now the issues of recent, we have issue of a Public Order Management Act. The root is also in the same document, where it says only NRM is allowed to operate in the country, such that other political parties, i.e. UPC, DPCP, and then there was national NLP, will cease to exist as required by the revolution. And these are things which the president says. Even recently, he said that by next election there should be no parties. This is the document. So this thing, these illusions which Captain Babu is talking about, that we are fighting for this, fighting for that. No, somebody was fighting for power, and he put it in writing, clearly spelled it out. Now we deceive ourselves that we are fighting for something more than that. We have been suppressed for all these years. People have lived in camps, people have been deprived. If you say don't want to talk about the history, there's a recent history. In the north right now, there's an issue about compensation. That happened in real time. So all of this history, the history of Uganda, we still have to deal with it. But let's deal with it honestly as politicians. If you support NRM, you speak for NRM, I speak for UPC. Okay. Don't subject me to all sorts of undemocratic practices and say you've done something for Uganda. No.
Thank you. Captain, before I come...
No, really, I think we've got something very unfortunate. The revolution is not for one person or a group of people who have got their views. If there are people within this country who have got certain views which he has been reading about, which he feels are his main thing,
maybe
the revolution which I am talking about...
Give it to that man.
Yes.
I've always asked
the yellow one.
I've always asked you to share that document. No, send it to me.
Here.
No, you read it.
No, I don't want
the revolution.
You forward it
listen,
to me.
The revolution which I know
to
was not this one.
Yeah.
Was not what he's reading about. The revolutions which I know had to do with what had happened in this country from 1962. And whatever
was that consensus? Because this seems like...
No.
It's an illusion.
No, listen.
It's
There
an
are
illusion
people
in his own mind.
Excuse me. There are people who have got their views. And please don't get it wrong. In every society, there are people who have got views. And if there are people who have got these views, that's their views. But if I go back, and I'm happy he mentioned it, that there are people who left the party because they had gone away from what they had agreed upon. And they left the party. I agree entirely. But whenever we talk about this, let us be sincere. There are people who believe in this one, whatever is right. By the way, I have no objection with what you have just said. There are people who are like that.
That is some of us, chairman.
Yeah, but I don't.
And those
no, I don't know
him.
about the chairman. I'm not going to mention people. But me as a person, I do not believe in it. I don't.
Then you're in the wrong party.
No.
Then you're in the wrong revolution.
First of all, this is not a document.
I did not.
Let
me tell you something else. I did not go in the revolution because of this party, which was formed in 2005. I went in a revolution of things that had happened before.
Yes.
And even in Musumba there.
That document was written in the bush. Not in 2005.
This document doesn't exist.
Nah.
But you see, Timo.
You know, sometimes
are you denying?
I like honest things.
No. You put it on record. The document does not exist.
I want you to share with me the document.
I will share with you.
Yes,
it's a public document.
But Timo.
Now, you see this propaganda
is the closest thing to a constitution propaganda. Of NRM.
Okay.
Show me a constitution of NRM before you came to power. You produce any document of the constitution.
But we didn't have NRM until 2005.
NRM was what?
We did not have
Excuse me. Let me help my brother here.
Like you didn't have PPF.
You didn't have PPF. Gentlemen,
Ambassador NRM did not exist until 2005.
I think the problem.
Okay. Honorable Jimmy, let me have Ambassador
last. Maybe it was the submission.
Maybe I'm in a nightmare.
What is making my brother uncomfortable is the submission that was made by Captain Babu.
But do you dispute that document?
I haven't seen it. I see extracts of messages exchanged. I think it was just their own discussion. It's not a document. I've ever had a forum where we discussed and I asked him to send that document. He promised and never sent it. So I don't even know what he's talking about. However, what Captain Babu was advancing...
Milton Obote's notes on consummation of genocide. It's in the appendix there.
What Honorable Babu...
1990, not 2005.
Let Ambassador finish.
What Honorable Babu was advancing is that the revolution could have got a spark using the elections which we are talking about. But that was not the only cause. There had been accumulated grievances. And that's why even the choice of the war started here, where the people were most aggrieved because of the failures we had in the 60s. We have ever discussed this with him, with my brother here. That the deficiency we talk about constitutionalism is because of the aborted infanthood of Uganda in 1962.
Is there any difference now?
Yes, there are lots of differences.
With the constitution? Okay.
Let's go into that.
Let's leave that.
However, I wanted to add on something.
Yes.
That in addition to what we're talking about, there's also bad culture among us. Issues of elections, every time a group wins, they say the system is okay. Whenever they lose, just look at the elections we go through. The same process that brought him on board as a winner in Lira is the same process that brought on board another person somewhere else. But the victory of Lira is not questioned. There, the system was fair. If it goes to another area where he's not standing, it's a problem. That bad culture of not accepting results from elections, honestly, it's not only here. You got to go to America where he's even giving a reference. That last election, they had to use the excuse that maybe Trump was helped by Russia or other countries. So issues of contention, whenever a party loses, they always have to get reasons why they lose. But at least the system is much fairer
Captain,
now
please,
than it was.
please
I just want to bring I want to bring one point very quickly. When the revolution was starting, there were different people with different views. They had to bring those views together and amalgamate them and come out with basic points. They were there. There were people who did, but let me tell you, there were people who didn't want to hear about Kabaka, for example. There were people who didn't want to hear about this and that. But as we went along, and this is where we are coming in, things have, some things have not gone right, and some people have even left. But the point remains that there was a change in this country, and this is where we are now. But to keep on saying that people went to the bush because of mere elections, no. There were other things.
Okay. Honorable Salam, let me come to you last. After hearing the back and forth, but also, I think, let me give you an opportunity to respond to what you've just had between Honorable Jimmy and Captain Francis Babu, but also Ambassador Chinobe, on that document, but vis-a-vis the elections.
I was in S4 in 1980, and I remember the brutality of the announcement at about 4 on my village in Namwendwa, seated on my father's house veranda. Of course, there were no perimeter walls then, and so we had this attack. By close of day, we knew DP had won, and then I saw a crowd of young men called UPC Youth invade everywhere. I was so mad. That's why I'm mad, because it left me with the subconscious. It impacted me, and that's why I hate injustice. I hate it. It was very bad. But this is bad. Worse. What we are going in today is worse. It was very bad then. That's why some of us are so angry that you can't take us to where we swore never to go back to. You are worse. But it was bad. You can imagine at that age, I wasn't even 18, going through all this terror. And I even surprised myself how I became a politician, because I had sworn. I'd sworn. But watching the injustice redo itself, we can't just sit. I was underage then. Now I'm a majority age. I can't allow this to repeat itself. But I'll tell you and face you in directly, Captain Babu, this is worse. Worse than what UPC did to us. I'm telling you. And it even feels worse, Sarah, when it's done by people who have history to look at. I'll go to 1999. One of the so-called revolutionaries sees things going wrong, and he says, listen, guys, this is getting off track. And he courageously says, I'm not going to do the rumor mongering of so many politicians talking behind the backs of everybody. He said, let me put it in writing. Because we were also told that those were the right methods of work. And so retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besigye puts it in writing and says, guys, we are veering off the revolutionary track. What happened to him? They went for him. And right now he's in Luzira. Luzira over the same things they said they would never do to us. You're not doing it just to us and wasting our lives. You are doing it, preparing the ground for our children and our grandchildren. It's sad, it's sad. Okay. I'm telling you, I get so angry, but I'll tell you about this thing. Don't get me there. There are so many unresolved conflicts that I thought that our generation would fix. I really believe we still have even the time to fix them. Let us not bequeath them to the next generation, because they know nothing about it. The digital world doesn't know your rumor mongering. About Simanyi, which history did what, did what. Fix it. We can fix ourselves. Those unresolved conflicts. Now look at just the recent one, the effort of Matoput. It failed, dead on arrival. Just give me one thing it resolved. It just postponed. Getting a whole generation of young men, actually people, drunk, you know, substance abuse. They cannot find the capability even to get spouses, to marry. They can't. Do you know that children cannot find spouses because they cannot run a family? Do you know it's the biggest social failure that we are doing to ourselves? Yet people have accumulated so much wealth which they can't even use. The other matter is
You mean the looting?
the crooks that have eaten everything available. Then this is all meant to disenfranchise young people. You know, the people who are in charge of the software package, the people who are in charge of the biometric, they can wipe out a whole cohort of voters, especially the young ones. Disenfranchise them. In all the petitions that we've run, presidential electoral petitions, the biggest issue has been disenfranchising voters. They tamper and tinker with the electoral register, and they're the ones in charge of it, okay? And they will just take out all the young people. Okay. And then you will have an entire generation disenfranchised. So it is sad. It is sad that there's nothing you can write home about Electoral Commission that's worth its name. Electoral Commission, for instance, I was expecting that now the census has come on time, and their duty is to go back to the constitutional provision and demarcate new constituencies, especially here in the city, especially here in Uganda. So you cannot plot against Uganda using all sorts of things, and the likes of Chinobe do not see this for their region. Chinobe, you've betrayed Uganda as part of the Electoral Commission of the NRM, not to use your knowledge and your intelligence to say, listen, we've just had a
by-election.
No, not a by-election. We've just had a census, and each 70,000 people, 70,000 voters. Is that the quota that gives you a constituency? Look at Nakawa. You know, look at Kampala. The whole of Kampala. How many constituencies are there? And you want to equate them to Karamoja, you know, and kill their voice. Their numbers don't matter for representation. You will give Kotido municipality of 3,000 voters. 3. You equate it with Kampala. I mean, this is bogus. You guys annoy us so badly that you leave us no option, even to see the good that is being done. Because you can't be so politically fraudulent to this extent in the year 2025.
Okay.
I mean, where else do you want us to say? There's a guy locked up there, the chairman of the Electoral Commission, locked up for 5 years, locked out there. You don't even know what he does, or what. You will just see cars running all over the place. What new thing have they brought on the table? Because they're duty bound to make this country better. You're duty bound, sir. And please, give it to the people of Uganda. You can leave us, some of us, out, because we've lived a full life.
Thank you.
But what about the next generation? What are you going to do with them? And you will pay. I'm telling you, you will pay with blood.
Let's read some messages here. This is Susan from Rukunjiri. Says, Timothy, thank you and the panelists for the show. Electronic voting would solve the problem of rigging. However, the Electoral Commission chair should visit, compass, scan, and see exactly what happens. Once you have a loan with a certain financial institutions, all financial institutions have your information because of the financial card system. Why can't voting happen this way? All other activities in this country, all other activities work better with electronic, but voting, that will not be possible, okay? Lawrence from Bara Kakoba says Ugandans are not ready for electronic voting because civic education or civil society, which would have been doing the civic education, has failed. DGF was closed and others are not operating. Okay, thank you very much. The use of electronic voting, the ordinary computers cannot change this or anything in Uganda. The country is rotten to the core. Elections no longer carry any sense. What currently is happening in the villages is abominable. Campaigns are not issue-based, they are money-based. At this rate, rogues with money are taking over the country. We are wasting money with selfish elections when social services are not happening. Sorry to this nation, okay? The current situation in Uganda is still below par because the current dictator, and no elections when the dictator is still there, is standing par now. This is Muganzi Reagan. No elections, no electoral voting. Okay, interesting. Thank you for the show. I'm watching from Masindi. It is a shame that the governing body, the Electoral Commission, could not be around to explain to us the intent to apply this electoral system. Okay. Thank you, Timothy. Whether the system changes, the electronic or the biometric, when we still have the same candidates on the ballot paper, who appoints the EC, the judiciary, and the army, the police chiefs, there shall be no difference. This is a Simwe, teacher Simwe Julius. But also we want to correct it. The Electoral Commission is the end user.
Absolutely.
The document needs to be passed from the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs by Cabinet to Parliament, and he's the end user, meaning the pressure for everything will be coming to them. But let's take a quick break. When we're back, we'll be analyzing these and more issues.
Living Legends and MTN presents one of Uganda's greatest entertainers. Mama Halima Namakula. Celebrating 50 years in the creative arts and 25 years in philanthropy. Get ready for an unforgettable night with special and magical moments at the Kampala Serena Hotel, happening on the 26th of July. Tickets available on Momo at 150K VIP and 3 million for a table. Dial *165 *20 hash to get your ticket. The Living Legends Gala is powered by and MTN. Together, we're unstoppable. Uniquely ours. Explore Uganda.
Paying our taxes builds roads that connect villages to cities, dams that light up homes, schools, and hospitals, airports that open Uganda to the world, businesses that rise and create jobs for more Ugandans. We are building the Uganda we all dream of. Thank you. Let's keep paying our taxes. This message is brought to you by the Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Bobby, again! What's this drama? Drama? Colleagues, elections for special interest groups are calling. SIGs, elections. Youth, PWDs, elderly. It's time to vote for our leaders, June through August. From village to parish to district to nationals, youth, PWDs, elderly. It's time, go vote your leaders.
No!
Elections are supposed to be peaceful. Easy vote, okay?
Youth, elderly, and persons with disabilities. It's time to choose our leaders. Let's show up and participate in the special interest group elections. Starting June through August this year. Your vote, your voice. My vote, my voice. This message is brought to you by the Uganda Electoral Commission.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines on this last leg of the show. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. In the studio, I'm joined by Honorable Proscovia Salam Musumba, Honorable Jimmy James Akena. I'm also joined by Captain Honorable Edward Francis Babu and Ambassador James Chinobe. We're discussing the proposal of the electronic voting system in this country, but also benchmarking it on our neighbors in Kenya, what happened in 2016 and onwards there, the last two cycles of elections, looking at also America in 2016, where allegations were made about the rigging that had been done by the Russians to the American voting system there. The president has also been vehement to name that he wants it to be mandatory, but also he continues to say that it will help with rigging moving forward. That's the discussion we're having here. Honorable Jimmy, let me come to you after I read these three messages here. Timothy, thank you for the show. How I wish the panel, all of them could be presidential advisors. I think in 5 years would be in a good in a better position. Interesting comment there. Thank you for the show.
No,
I cannot see Musumba. I cannot see Musumba sitting with the full figure.
Incoming president now.
Let me continue the messages here. Thank you for the show. It's a great thing that those the people that are there, like Captain Babu and the NRM, thought it was secret Santa to keep fooling the whole country with these selfish interests and locked them up. But this time comes and just stand warned. The warning is serious here.
Warning me?
Not you,
I think he's warning the NRM.
Oh.
Is Uganda ready for electronic voting? The answer is no. Is electronic voting possible? Yes. Reasons for no: lack of better infrastructure, internet and power, lack of strong legal safeguards, true, and no political consensus or public trust. No pilot test before the national rollout. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very elaborate comment there. Honorable Jimmy, in 2016, the Amama case was hinged on the biometric. In 2020, they made an amendment to adopt technology and the management of technology there. When you see this, if it is rolled out, what will it look like and what will be the aftermath of the elections come February or March of 2026?
You see, reality is that this is a very ambitious proposal. If you follow the difficulties which UBOS went through in collecting data, if you follow the difficulties which NERA has been going through on this, the mass,
yes,
the update of whatever, there have been many areas where they have failed because of network issues.
Yep.
And this whole thing hinges on a functioning network system. In order to be able to verify, a lot of it has to touch on that one. And the issue of being able to feed the results in close to real time for it to be beneficial and be able to be monitored is what we face. But I pointed out earlier, in a reality where maybe the polling station is next to a school which has no desk, what are we talking about? Are we in the same country? Are we dealing with the same people? The people of Uganda, there are people who are almost completely, they're outside of the whole monetary economy because of circumstances. And those are not just few, there are very many. We have these statistics which talk about, there's somebody saying that a small percentage pays 60% of the taxes. So if you take out what they earn, and then you take out all the government workers, leave the rest and divide it according to the rest of the population, which will still be around 45 million, because there are very few of these on this other side. You'll find that the income per capita is so low when you remove all of these other issues. And that's the reality where we're now talking about an elaborate electronic system. Do you even have the infrastructure to run it? You don't. You have not dealt with the basic issues. The other day I was reading a story which really touched me about mothers who struggle to go for antenatal on the issue of exercise books.
Yes. You have to go with the book to record.
You have to go with the book.
You know, in the past they were called medical form 5. in your father's time.
They struggle to keep the book at home. Sometimes they don't have the book, they cannot get treatment. And that is a problem, a big problem for the next generation of Ugandans. And now we're bringing an elaborate system thinking that we're going to be doing this. What are we doing? We're not dealing with what the Ugandans are suffering. We're in a completely aloof world. And this issue which Salam is saying about maybe it is somebody's tender or whatever, it's a problem because we're not dealing with the issues. For me, I'd rather, if it's a people-based issue, we talk about revolution. Okay, if you talk about revolution, for me, a revolution which will work is where every Ugandan can get adequate medical services anywhere in Uganda.
Good, that's a good point.
Everybody can get quality education everywhere in Uganda. That is the revolution I'll stand for. That is what I live for. That's what I'll fight for. But it's not happening. And politics is supposed to be a vehicle whereby we can channel those energies, we can focus people. And that's the whole process of election. We're supposed to be talking to the people, building up this consensus to order to move forward, not manipulating the system to try and maintain something and to try and where's all this money coming from?
Taxpayer.
No. What is happening
taxpayer
is not helping.
There is no taxpaying.
We have borrowed so much. I've been on the National Economy Committee. I get sick. We struggle to borrow, then we fail to spend. We get a loan. They bring a loan today, they say it's on order paper in the afternoon. How? How do you go through that document? As if when you're preparing for a loan, don't you go through all the rigors and what? Why do you keep ambushing Parliament? And this
but
one
do
thing I
you
find.
know the value of that? The ambush is so that they can get their cut. Soon as they are paid, then it can go dormant. It's about transactional.
The word here in Uganda is called injaulo.
Yeah.
Now, if you have one bull and you want liver, sure, how are you going to get the liver? It's not going to happen. You're killing the whole country. The debt which we are facing today, and we were recently, not very long ago, our debt was wiped off. But we are struggling to get debt. Even the last thing we did in this government this year, the last thing we did was pass a loan, which we'll never be able to borrow in that time, but it was passed in Parliament. Rules were suspended. Everything was suspended. It just came on the floor. It passed. That's the madness we have in Uganda.
Do you see this coming to the floor of Parliament and how, being that the NRM has the majority?
They have a super majority, but they are failing to operate as a parliament or a parliamentary system or parliamentary party. They should not have to be suspending the rules. If you have the numbers, mobilize your numbers and argue your case. But the fact that you cannot argue the case because it's not justifiable, you use all sorts of methods to roughshod all of us. There should be serious debate on many of the issues which affect the lives of the people of Uganda. That's what the campaign should be about. Let us be talking about where the future is, how we're going to tackle this future, how we're going to be able to build an inclusive society. But we go around in circles. Now we're going to spend a lot of time on this electronic thing, but this is also part of a distraction. Before you know it, that is thrown out the window, we're going to go on to something else. But what I said earlier, the mathematics is not working. So those who are on the ground, who are fighting, you keep up the pressure because the effects are being felt.
Captain Francis Babu, Honorable Jimmy makes a very valid point. This electronic voting is good, but it's not the real pains of Ugandans. How do we reconcile these two?
You see, first and foremost, your question was only on electronic system to be used for elections. But if you want us to talk about the problems we are going to face, first of all, the first one, which is very important, there is no infrastructure. We have a complete ministry called ICT. Is that correct?
And national guidance.
Up to now, they have not deepened the internet throughout the country. We also have a big organization called UCC. Now, this is, to begin, that's where he started from, and he was right. Then you go down to our own people. He just gave you the example of the book. Now, somebody who is having a problem with the book, you're now telling them to use electronic means
to vote.
To vote. Then there's this word, which I'm sorry, I don't like to use it anymore. The word corruption, I think, is a nice word. These are thieves.
Plunder.
Robbers.
This is plunder.
These are thieves. They are looting. And my friend, what's his name? The man, the Kenyan man, Lumumba. He said this is industrial looting. So if this electronic thing which they have brought is got people like that behind it, then we're in trouble. Because they are pushing it, but they are not pushing it after seeing what the results are going to be. Now, like the young man who sent a message to you, right now, is it possible? The answer is no. Is it a good idea? Yes, but we need to work onto it. We need to go through. In fact, Madame said something very nice. We should try it out. How do you use something you haven't even tried out? Then you have the Electoral Commission, supposed to be, although the end user, but they are going to use it anyway. So they need to know, to understand it.
They have an electronic register.
Madame has brought me a fantastic point which I wanted to talk about. Kampala has got a population of over nearly 2 million people who vote. They are just around Kampala. These 2 million, if you took the 5 divisions, which are now have been divided into 2, they are now about 10. One area has got 200,000 voters. And you're talking about another place which has got 3,000 voters. Kampala, from the time it was demarcated, when I was still in Parliament, the parishes are still the same. They're about 100.
Parish model.
Now, nobody has come to Kampala to review these parishes, to review the constituencies. All they are doing, they are sitting there and talking about numbers. I'll tell you right now, we've just been in a party has been giving primaries. What people have done, they have gone from one party to another party. Another group, they're just disturbing each party. Nobody is even, this NRM which thinks is a mass party, half of the people are from other parties inside the party.
We are the biggest export to NRM. Thank you.
Are you with me? Then we have a man, the one who took pigs at Parliament here. Yeah? He's in one of the constituencies, he wants to be a member. He's removing everybody's posters.
Is that sincere?
No. That is I don't know the man's name. I don't know their names.
You don't want to know.
I just know that he's moving people's pictures and he's very proud about it and he insults people and he's bringing he's bringing people from the other group and putting them in NRM so they can vote for him. Now, with this kind of thing, electronic cannot work. And they are so proud. They brag about it. You know? Now, the worst bit about the whole thing is corruption in the elections, where things are changed, numbers are changed, all sorts of funny things are happening. Even your staff are involved. Now, this is where the problem is. So how do you use electronic equipment with that kind of thing? That means you'll have opened a field day for hackers. They will hack those equipments.
And so, they even have a back pass.
Yeah, that now
and
that brings
in the
me
last 2 elections, they've used companies from South Africa and Israel.
Correct.
Yeah.
Those platforms which they are using, who controls them? So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say, yes, it's a very good system. If it is very well prepared, we all try to understand it. We try the Indian model, which has got 3 items checking each other. Then we get people really trained to use them correctly, and then explain it to our people, and then also expand the internet. This internet thing, I'm really surprised. We've got the best satellites here. I've seen satellite dishes which belong to government. There's even one in West Nile which was put, by the way, those dishes were bought by President Amin.
Yeah. From here.
As far as I'm concerned, we can get the one in West Nile and this one, and they make them work, and make sure that we have internet throughout the country. We have a complete Minister of ICT, big men, very nice people, very smart. They can help us.
But I can.
Yes.
There's a fiber optic cable, which has been
from Marubeni.
It has been unrolled. No, this one came later.
That's the third
The pioneer one
generation.
was Marubeni, but I
That's the third
Excuse me,
generation.
the Marubeni was a different phase.
I want to remind you, don't think we've forgotten.
Now, that infrastructure
allows
was
Honorable
put in
to-
place, but the utilization is very limited.
Yes. Yes.
But there is fiber optic which has been put in place on loan. We borrowed to put the fiber optic, but we're not utilizing it. But it is in place.
Where?
It is across the country.
Even my village.
And the main lines,
Because I'll tell you,
the fiber optic goes to the main lines, and then you can now link it up to these other providers to expand it to there. This is like the main road, the trunk roads are the ones which were done
Yeah.
Around the
But have
country.
you seen the cost?
around the country.
at
Excuse
very
me.
high cost. We borrowed.
Have you seen the cost of the people who are getting money from those fiber optics, the one they are charging us for internet?
No, this is not the one on the private users.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this is one of the government backbone, which is supposed to onboard the other private users. But at this moment, we have borrowed money, we have put this infrastructure, we have not used it.
The private people are getting it from government.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So,
But they also had their own before the government put in. If you found MTN had, Airtel had, they'd already put theirs before government came in. Now government has expanded it. It's now the utilization. I.e., if it was me in that position, all the hospitals will be linked. Number one. So
Yes.
that you can have this issue, that even though you have your professional expertise elsewhere, you can still be able to communicate with those on the ground.
Yeah.
Then you also start linking other institutions of higher learning,
Yes.
high schools and whatever. Then you expand from there, but those are key institutions which must be integrated in the system.
you know, even the single spine Ministry of Finance payment system, it suffers that. Internet. It suffers an internet problem. In Kamuli, for instance, they had only one supplier, Airtel, and all the officials were supposed to enter their payments from 8 to midday. And for some reason, at quarter to midday, it would go off. And so you would lose time, payments would not be made, and then when the financial year ends, then you have residual funds that they happily share here, and you have high-rise buildings, apartments, all those things, while they count us as the poorest people, and with glee. You know, all this thing is built to facilitate robbery.
but I don't know why we can't see this. Some countries, what they have done, the rich people have paid for these services, and the money they've got from these services have helped the poor.
And let me come to you.
You get what I'm trying to say? In other words, you pay the premium, you big
Yes.
buy. The money we get, for example, let's take Mulago Hospital. Would have a section of free, and then would have a section for the people who can pay.
The one they used to call private.
That's right. You get the money from the private to run the one for the poor. Now, this is being done in a lot of countries. That's what they do. Get it from the rich and try and help the poor. Even the taxes are the same.
Lastly, Captain Francis Babu, Kenya, the US,
Yes.
the server became a server in the last and the previous elections.
Yes.
The US, the banter was between Russia and the hacking.
Yes, correct.
Any lessons we can draw from there before we roll out, or before this proposal becomes reality?
Those guys are so sophisticated. Even the explanation is being done. Is being done through the back doors. You know. Do you remember something that happened between Al Gore and Bush in Florida? Remember that one?
Yes, I do.
That one had to be solved. But see, we don't have that kind of group which goes behind the curtain and they solve these issues. These issues are there. They happen in every country. But you need a group of people who are serious, who can solve them. I only saw people solving those the other day in Tanzania when they were electing Magufuli. There were all sorts of very tough characters who could have become president of Tanzania. But there was a group that went somewhere behind and came back and said, no, you guys are very nice, you're all very good, but we want this man called Magufuli to become the president. And it's very interesting. The same group also brought the lady.
The statesmen and stateswomen.
We need people like those who can help us. And he was talking about political advisors. No, these political advisors you have nowadays, not those ones. We want real
Strategists.
Strategists.
Which ones is he talking about?
He's talking about these. There are some here. There's one. I don't know. I forget their names.
Suggested you. Or we should be like PFF.
Actually, the suggestion was
a council of eminent leaders.
Yeah, we have a council. Do that.
So at the end of the day, what we need, really, everything that has been said here, most of it has happened. But that is not what we want. And I was happy when you came back to him and said, if they did this in the hospital, if they did this in the schools, if they did in the schools, that's the revolution I want. That is the revolution we supported.
Bambi.
That is the revolution we supported.
Then
so if anybody went away from that revolution, no, I'm telling you,
yes.
If anybody went away from that revolution, he left the revolution we wanted. So the things they are talking about, these wrong things like becoming rich, and when they become rich, they will leave the money here. And they will join
like a small box.
They go in a 6-foot thing. So what we need to do
like this.
really is I want this panel to show them that we are above all that. One, all the things which are done wrongly should stop. People want things done correctly. People want honest things. People want this country to move forward honestly. We are tired of people walking around with little guns and talking nonsense. And by the way, I am sorry, I am not afraid of them at all. I am just annoyed that they are spoiling our country. These people must be warned, because what we want is a country, but the majority of these people in this country are so good, the majority. The people who are causing these problems are not even 1% of 46 million. So I want us to sit down and look inside. We should look inside ourselves. How can we make this country move nicely without all this nonsense? We have very highly educated young people. We have highly educated people all over the country. We've got very nice people. We've got different views. It doesn't matter. I was listening to a talk by a professor in Nigeria on the book which has been written by the former president. I've forgotten his name.
Good luck.
No, there was a president before that one, the one who was an army guy. He has written a book. And all of them, Obasanjo, Buhari, and whatnot, all of them were there. And he said each one of these was overthrowing the other one. One would overthrow Buhari, the other one would overthrow another president, but now they're together. They were adversaries, but they're now together to make the country move forward. The question is, if we have differences, and I'm happy you brought about Besigye. My first point when Besigye was brought here, please give Honorable Besigye bond, bail. And then you can bring him in the court every day. It doesn't matter, because the man is about my age. We are old men. The jail is not a good place to be. And I've been reading, I don't know if it's a social media, that His Excellency was given false information. If this is true, Besigye should go home. First of all, that would make a very big difference. Why I'm bringing these points, by the way, is that there are many things that are making us hate each other for no reason at all. We can find solutions to all these problems. These are challenges which are facing our country, and we can find solutions, each one of them, without any problem. And all those things which have gone wrong, we find a solution, we go to a new one. We can't go on living in the past. We now have to go in the future. So, I am saying, one, it's good you brought this electronic thing to us. I would like it. But looking at the infrastructure, looking at our psychological level, looking at the Ugandan politician, the way they behave, looking at these people who are looking for money, I don't think it can work.
Okay. Ambassador Chinove, let me bring you in. There is this new number plate. In what was passed...
Wasn't it electronic?
it's like electronic, you're supposed to even be reading it. From what was passed by Honorable Jimmy and Parliament there, the proceeds were supposed to be going to the road fund. We saw NEC in it, we saw the people in it, we see UBOS. Generally anything that has touched technology has not gone to the parent organization. How sure are we this is not a security measure? How sure are we, since we're speculating, let us even speculate, is this a security measure? Is it an electronic voting measure?
Of course, I think the entire discussion we've been going through is that even what we were talking about is a good idea. The numbers were a very good idea, but possibly the conceptual framework that delivers what is desired, I think still has a problem. Because I've been reading about the controversies even on the number plate. Some people think it is traffic management, others say it is security, others say it is, but finally we all saw what had happened until General Katumba said, if it is about traffic and fines, let's suspend it and get through it. This now shows that sometimes some of the ideas are brought out when they are not fully thought through very, very effectively. And that's the argument we're having now, that yes, we speculate about this, we underscore the importance of this matter, but have we done enough groundwork? Or is it because someone shopped an idea and came and convinced whoever is in charge of the decision making? And you know, these fellows have a way of bringing out very good narratives, and if you are the top man there and you have a problem, you immediately think, this is going to sort all the problem that he's talking about. So I think there are some ideas that would have been given serious due diligence. Some of those who are in part, remember we talked about the system for NIRA versus the system used in the which is this department which makes immigration.
Yes.
Each department was buying its own machine, and the cost was almost the same. And the argument then was say, why?
And they were not talking to each other.
And they were not talking. That period which you're talking about when the Honorable Musumba was still a Minister of Finance, the matter came to us because we were still in Parliament. But each group first secured money even before they discussed on the concept. And regrettably, the statement attributed to the Minister is saying we have the financial capacity. I don't think the issue would have been the financial capacity,
technical capacity as well,
but the technical capacity should have been discussed. So I think these are challenges which our leaders should really pick out. This debate is very important because it helps the people who are outside the beneficiary racket. Because other than being beneficiaries out of the easiness to vote, we may not be getting direct benefits from the proceeds that may arise. They should be reading through the lines that some of these trial things which are tried on our system sometimes end with very, very serious consequences and embarrassments to government. There are sometimes situations that emerge, and you know, you who is more friendly, you try to look for appropriate explanations to, you know, to see whether you either fall in or not.
Ambassador, do you know what they call syndicate crime? This is syndicate crime. So, because let me tell you, if you touched the guy who has brought in immigration their system and you stalled it, there will be a dead body tomorrow on the streets of you who has tried to put sense in what is happening. So there's disjointed procurement.
You know, the fellows who hatch these syndicates are very smart people. They also know how to isolate who is going to go against what you're talking about. So by the time you even bring in constructive ideas, people are not even willing to listen to you. But these are things that need to help us to...
Let me give you something
about... I wanted to say something about the demarcations of constituencies. I think the issue of the regions here and the constituencies is very, very pertinent. However, it comes at a very difficult time when there is now the debate of how to reduce parliament. We are talking about a very huge size of parliament, which is no longer...
But you'll begin discussing the size of parliament when it comes to Uganda.
No, I'm saying it is vis-a-vis a serious debate that I think the parliament, the size of parliament
to about 200
is already running out of proportion.
Come on.
Why don't you talk about
be equitable.
Because when you talk about Uganda and Busoga, the land size is the same.
Thank
but
you
I'm now
very
talking
much.
about the
But the
general
population is different. This is not about land size. This is about population and
Honorable Salam, let me
representation.
finish my point.
Yes. Okay.
You are aware that demarcation depends on many other factors. One
Which
of them
one?
is population, another one is land size.
No,
Yes.
there's a constitutional one.
No.
There are two things.
Look,
It's
just go through,
it's
yes.
either
The
population
land
or
size,
geographical.
Yes, geographical. So
access.
the land
Access.
size
Okay.
is also one of the considerations. So we are saying it is very, very pertinent because, for example, when you talk about the parishes, those of us who are in this region are already suffering because the parish model is the funds are dispersed in
I
relation
want
to
you
parishes.
to go
Some of the parishes you have
Toro,
in this central
the
region.
guys who are inside
Why don't
this
you
parish
leave-
model, wait,
why
the
don't
guys
you-
who are inside the parish model, while us we were asking for town councils
No,
and
why don't you let me
sub-counties,
finish my
they were
point?
asking for parishes.
The point
They
I'm trying
knew.
to make, Salam Honorable, you were in Parliament at that time when we were demarcating even the regional tier, when we were proposing even other districts in this region. The fireback we had from other centers within Uganda that we are partitioning this region into smaller ungovernable and splitting the kingdom. Those sentiments stopped us from moving in
Yeah,
the direction
that.
which we had at that time. But right now as we speak, it is already firing back because the parishes in this region we are talking about actually are the size of some districts in some other areas, and yet you're still talking about the administrative units. So we may need to have affirmative action rather than increasing the number of members of parliament. So I strongly submit that yes, Buganda region should also be given a fair distribution of constituencies, but I think the factor of using the existing structure of creating constituencies is erratic. For example, every district you create becomes an electoral area. As we speak today, Tororo, which was one count, has got 3 districts. You are now already introducing 3 members of parliament, and then I think the counties below will be divided into other sub-counties, and you are likely to have an increase of about 10 members of parliament just by using that
Actually,
formula.
the number
So
is coming,
I think
number is coming from 2.8
But
to
you
this.
see,
so I
districts
think
are not supposed
Parliament,
to
the
be
issue
the
of
ones
constituencies, I
demarcating
think, for
constituencies.
representation purposes, should be discussed independent of this, irrespective of the region,
Okay.
because the size of Parliament is getting out of hand.
Honorable, if Ambassador Chinobe, if you were to put this proposal, how would you frame it to suit the situation now,
Which
but
proposal?
also my second question that is coupled to
The
that,
proposal of what? Of
the proposal of an electronic voting system. How would you frame it? But also, why is government failing to integrate? Why do we have data everywhere?
Of course, from the experience I had when we were discussing what I told you, integration became a problem because some beneficiaries, financial beneficiaries, were always having their budget and wanted to procure whatever they wanted to procure. Otherwise, integration would have been the best. For example, I don't think you really need another database when NIRA has the database. You just need to improve it and then add on end users, because those just have ports to do what they want to do for immigration, tap into and do what you want to use with the, immigration and so on. However, these are debates we must engage in.
But
We are tired
if you are
of
talking
debates.
about, you don't have to get annoyed and tired, because this is a continuous engagement
No,
process.
Ambassador,
because really, if we had a Department of State, for instance, a single spine place for data management, I mean, that's you hook on to it all the other aspects.
Ambassador, let me make it simple. Hold on. When I send, if I'm to send an email to Honorable Salam, and I put it in PDF, she can only read it and not edit it. It is as simple as that.
Even
You have come
blockchain.
from sectoral to programming. Why has this failed? This is where the concerns of a Ugandan is my data